Good evening from Buckingham Palace. What a remarkable day. Thanks for joining me as we take a look back at the historic highlights of the scenes that have unfolded here in London at what has been a truly joyful coronation, as well as sharing some of the magnificent moments our cameras captured. I'll be talking to some of the people who were part of it all. And I should mention that if you'd like to watch the day's events back in full, either with or without commentary, then please do go to the iPlayer. I'm delighted to introduce my first guest this evening, a familiar face to us all, and somebody that I spoke to this morning just after 7:30 a.m. And Giles Brandreth, you will be able to say, I was there, because you were in the Abbey.
I was in the Abbey for this extraordinary day that was majestic, magnificent, and moving. It was deeply moving to be there in the place where for 1,000 years and more our sovereigns have all been crowned, and to witness the crowning of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. And I looked around at that very moment and there were tears in a lot of people's eyes. It was a very, very moving moment, a magnificent day, but a human day as well. And all the range of people who were there was quite extraordinary. I found myself humbled because I was sitting adjacent to, the man next to me was the oldest recipient of the Victoria Cross still alive.
Goodness.
A gentleman of 89 years of age. I met somebody who had, in fact, she was carrying the orb. She told me, I said, oh, yes, she said, I have the Order of Merit. She said, I think I'm the first nurse since Florence Nightingale to receive the Order of Merit. So these remarkable people were there, people who'd won the British Empire Medal, people who had won done things for the Prince's Trust. And then there was a coughing fit just nearby, and I thought, oh, what's going to happen now? And Dame Emma Thompson was fumbling in her bag and produced a cough suite, which was then passed down the row and given to the cougher, because then they stopped, which was wonderful, because we were having such music. The music at this event, it is so fantastic to have a king and a queen for whom the arts really count.
Yes.
And the music for this was clearly personally curated by the king, and it was fabulous.
I mean, such a different makeup of congregation, because as we were talking about it, extensively today, we are seeing for the first time, it is a state event, so of course the government is in charge of part of the guest list, but then the king and queen make up the rest of the guest list. And it was very, very wide-ranging and very representative, and the great and the good today became something different. They weren't just people who were socially placed. They were people who really contribute to society in so many diverse ways.
You're right. The great and the good have changed, and they really are the good. And because of the good they do, they are seen to be great. And that was fantastic. And, the king had told us years ago that he wanted to be the defender of the faith. This was a totally Christian service, absolutely yes. Traditional in that sense. But he was the defender of the faiths. Where else would you see? There was this parade of leaders of a range of faiths. And I thought, goodness gracious me, the Baha'i faith is being celebrated here, along with all the other better-known faiths. It really was so inclusive. People of all kinds. The diversity was everywhere.
We did actually see at the end, and I'm not sure how much for people in the Abbey this was the case, but for those of us watching on the camera coverage, which was sensational, I have to say, although I'm a bit biased, but we saw people from all these faiths just addressing the king at the very end of the service before he exited out into
There was a special moment right at the end where this was all put together. Because the whole ceremonial had been so much a traditional Christian service, they were all gathered, the final thing, to send him on his way. The defender of faiths, that was what he wanted as the final moment, which is fantastic.
Let's talk for a moment about the exceptional regalia that was on display. How did that look when you were actually in the Abbey?
Can I tell you, I mean, honestly, I don't know how I'm going to go home and face my wife. We've got a 50th wedding anniversary coming up. I mean, what am I going to give her? The crown. I mean, it glistened, it glinted, it really did. Yes. When as they walked down the nave wearing these, I mean, you wouldn't believe how wonderful it was. But you were conscious, too, of the weight of the crowns. I mean, I suppose that I was there because I've been involved in some of the charity work that the Queen does, particularly to do with literacy and the Commonwealth. And then to see a human being having this extraordinary crown placed on their head, and you felt their vulnerability.
Yes, I want to ask you about that, because a human being that I mean, we can think, well, in the end, they are people. They are people like us, and they live and breathe, and they hurt, and they've got blood pumping through their veins. But when you actually really properly know them, as well as the King and Queen, What different sort of patina does that put on?
It was very strange, because I came out with Andrew Lloyd Webber, who had a great triumph with his wonderful anthem, and with the Queen's hairdresser. who had been up at
Who
6.
did a great job, incidentally.
Who did a great job, who'd been up at 6 this morning and was so anxious about that moment when the crown was put on, and was it put on quite right?
Yes.
And she knew the Queen...
And
you
indeed,
thought,
the Queen did start to sort of adjust
yes,
her
just
hair.
to adjust her hair to make sure it was balanced as it should be.
Yes.
It is.
You saw the man and not the king was when the super tunica was removed, the golden robe was removed, and he was standing there just simply in a white sort of linen-like tunic, and there was a great power and simplicity in that.
Power and simplicity, but also a great humility. I mean, I felt that this was just a human being, quite a humble human being. And the emphasis in the service, and I've compared this service with the one that was in 1953. This was cleaner, shorter, briefer, more concise, but much more in it about service. This service was about service. From the beginning to end, there were references to the king being there not to be served, but to serve. And I was reminded of the last public statement made by the late Queen Elizabeth II. It was, she signed it, as you remember, on her Jubilee, your servant.
Yes.
And I felt all the echoes of that these people were saying, we are the servants, and the people in the congregation had been chosen because most of them, there were exceptions, but most of them were people who actually had given service.
I wonder if in a way that was the greatest thing that the late Queen bequeathed her son, was this sense, a deep, deep sense of duty, because it was surely all of his life that he saw that. Yes. You know, even at the times when, and he's spoken of this, when he missed his mother, when his mother was not there, because she couldn't be with him because she was doing her duty for the country.
That's the commitment to that was absolute, and that's what it's going to be, and it's fantastic. Has Emma Thompson given you one of her cough sweets? Because I think I need it now.
You take it. I'm just, while you're doing that, while you're taking a sip,
yes, you can have a look.
I want
you can't
to take
keep it.
a
This
look
is
at
this is my beautiful,
remarkable thing. And it really is very, very beautiful. The coronation of their Majesties, King Charles III and Queen Camilla. That is not something you want to leave on the tube this evening. That is very precious indeed.
It's very precious, and it reflects all the names. There's both the ancient and the modern in this. They're all the traditional, you know, the heralds and all of that, and the aristocracy. They were all there. But there were the modern touches, and there was a new generation. And I found it very moving too when the Prince of Wales came forward and made his homage. So we got all that. We got the family, we got the friends, and we got the people who have served this country and want to do so. And we got a king who actually really means it. And I think he is going to serve, and serve well. Good start.
Good start. Charles Brandreth, thank you for taking the time. It's been a long day for you.
It's been a long day for you, and well done. People I bumped into the Director General. He was, I don't know how he got in, but anyway, he was there, and he said, well done to you. Could I pass the message on? So I am. Oh, people still watching? Oh, well.
Probably not. Everyone's switched off by now. Thank you so much for joining us. Really nice to see you. London woke early to welcome this historic day in all its ceremonial glory, and ready to greet their Majesties, the King and Queen, as they departed Buckingham Palace for the coronation service. Early this morning, very early, thousands of troops arrived from all over the country to form part of this huge celebration. And they marched in through Waterloo Station. And they were, of course, cheered on by the crowds, some of whom had been there all night. And their route took them across Westminster Bridge to Parliament Square and towards their muster point at Wellington Barracks. It was a stirring sight for everyone who witnessed it. Hugh Edwards and Claire Balding commentated on the building excitement across the capital.
For 1,000 years, kings and queens have been crowned at Westminster, but today the people in the Abbey and all of us watching will expect a ceremony that certainly blends the ancient with the modern, because it has to reflect the rich diversity of today's United Kingdom and the Commonwealth of Nations. Abbey is now filling up rapidly. People have been told to be in their seats bright and early for a service that doesn't begin formally until 11 o'clock. but lots of familiar faces joining us now.
Magnificent scenes. Well, we're joined now by two more people who were in the congregation at Westminster Abbey this morning, Baroness Tanni Grey-Thompson and Sir Michael Morpurgo. Welcome to you both, and thank you after what has been a very long day, because you had an early start, for coming in to see us. I'm going to ask you both for your sort of personal highlights. First of all, to you, Tanni, what was your highlight of the day?
There's actually two things. It's the people watching. So we were in early. We were in Parliament at 6:30. We're in the Abbey by 8.
Goodness.
But just the huge, as Giles said, the huge range of people were there. The most emotional bit for me was the national anthem. You could feel it, you know, the emotion, the noise, it sort of reverberated through you. As an athlete, I've been very lucky to sort of be on stage and have the national anthem.
Yes.
But this was like nothing else that I've ever experienced. It felt a sort of real beginning. That was an incredible moment.
Right, so the power was in that, this sense of genuinely a new era. Yes. Genuinely a new moment.
And I think some of it is because we'd had sort of several sort of God Save the Kings, and it was building up to that moment. But nothing like I'd ever experienced, you know, when the Queen was alive. It was just extraordinary.
How interesting. Michael Morpurgo, for you then, I mean, we're going to go into it in more depth, but just when you think of it instantly, what is the moment that sort of gives you the gut punch?
The moment I shall never forget is the moment I remember from 70-odd years ago, when I was nearly 10, and I was in a village hall of a little village called Bradwell-on-Sea in Essex, and I saw black and white television for the first time, and the whole village was in the village hall, and we watched the Coronation, June '53, and there was this minute woman, a princess. She looked so fragile, and she was having the crown put on her head, and she was so vulnerable at that moment. There were these great clerics standing around in their cloaks. It was an extraordinary moment, and then it was echoed today, and I just felt my heart going, this is 70 years later, and this person is connected to that person, and that person was connected to William the Conqueror, and the whole thing comes back and back and back.
I wonder also, it is part of it, I might be completely wrong here, that idea that heavy is the head that wears the crown, you know, that with it, in this moment of intense grandeur, and in many ways, you know, drenched in privilege, yet here is a person who is taking on this very weighty responsibility of somehow representing all of us.
Yes, uneasy lies the head. It's absolutely that. It must be the most extraordinary thing to grow up with it anyway, as this wonderful King Charles has done. He's grown up with this knowledge in his head that he was going to be king one day, and now it's happened. And the weight on his shoulders and his mind must be enormous. There's a sense of responsibility, which I'm absolutely sure he will be quite capable of fulfilling. But nonetheless, the moment, and you could see it on his face, there was an enormous intensity as this was happening. And that moment when two of the bishops were leading him elbow by elbow forward, and you almost felt they were carrying him, that he was so fragile at that moment. And he is like that. He's not a big, boisterous person who's coming at you. He is a human being who's immensely sensitive, and that really came across then. And that's why he's such good news, I think, for us.
And again, Baroness Grey-Thompson, that is a different thing. You know, 70 years ago, people knew very little of this young woman at 25 years of age. This is not the case. I mean, partly that's to do with society and the fact that everything is more expositional, but also this is a man who has lived a life, and we saw him there today, you know, like many of us watching, you know, people with second marriages, people who marry in middle age, people who go on to take on challenges. This had a very different complexion today.
It did, and I think you felt that all the way through in terms of the pages and the blended family. And what Michael was saying, I think everyone breathed a sigh of relief when the crown was put on both the King and the Queen's head.
Right.
Because watching it in real life as opposed to watching it through a screen, you felt much more closely connected to it. And that sense of worry. And having spoken to people who've been rehearsing on and off quite a lot, you know, a huge amount of pressure on an awful lot of people to get this right, because there's tens of millions of people around the world watching this.
Yeah.
And why it was so unforgettable, those moments and many others, was the music was just extraordinary. I'm sure he was responsible for choosing a lot of that, but it was quite extraordinary, the way that Abbey resounded with this extraordinary sound, and we were sitting there enveloped by it. And then you looked up, at this architecture, and you're in this place, and you knew this had been going on, this whole tradition, and it is sort of it's the core of who we are, you know, and it's why our history is so important. We've a lot to be proud of, a lot to be ashamed of. It's a mix and match thing, and the more we get to know ourselves and know where we've come from, it'll help us to know where we're going. And I think he's going to help us do that, because he's a man of great passion. He's grown up knowing that it's a very good idea that young people can achieve their potential if they are helped along the way. He's grown up knowing that the planet needs helping. He's been saying it since he was practically in his cradle and no one paid any attention and mocked him. Well, excuse me, look where we are. So I think we are very lucky in the boy who's grown up to be our king.
Tanya, you're agreeing with a lot of that. I mean, your personal experiences with the King. Who is the man that you saw reflected today in the Abbey? What are his characteristics?
His connection to people. That, you know, he has an incredible memory for the people he's met, what they've done, and he brings people out of themselves when they have that conversation. He's really interested in learning about people. And, you know, when you say, you know, we know more of his views on the world, but
yes,
when you see him with young people, whether it's through the Prince's Trust or other charities, he lights something in people's eyes. He just has a way with people that, you know, it's very difficult to do it unless you are authentic and genuine about it.
Michael, I was talking with Giles just a moment ago before you came into the studio about the makeup of the congregation, and how, again, that was, you know, it was very much of the moment. Although this is a man of 75 and a queen slightly older than that, you know, something about today, the great and the good, the definition of it changed today, I think. You know, many people there, like both of you, people who were known and, you know, show-busy, dazzling stars, but people who were unknown, who are there because of what they're contributing. That's a new thing in British society, in something as extraordinarily fancy as a coronation.
Yes, and it's very important to recognise that the unknown people are the people who make this country tick, and they're the good people who make this country tick. You know, we can all be up there in front of television cameras if we so wish, but the people who he wants to talk to, particularly the young people, I think, because these are the future, these people. It's my grandchildren, his grandchildren. These are the people who are going to inherit whatever it is that we do. And my generation has not done a great job, it has to be said. I think it's going to be it's a heavy load for him to pass on and to change, and we have to become more optimistic. We have to become more engaged with each other. That is happening, you're quite right. You looked around that Abbey and it was full of the best of Britain. You know, we are remarkable that way, in the way that we do hold what we have to learn to do, I think, is to look with more open eyes abroad, and he's wonderful that way. I mean, when he went to Germany, he was just terrific, spoke in German. I mean, look what his mother did when she went to Ireland. It's this notion of, actually, yes, we love our country, but other countries are important too, other cultures, and our connection with them. And he knows the connection, he knows his history.
To both of you, thank you very much. We've run out of time, sadly. We could have another good half hour on that, but I'm going to have to say thank you very much indeed. It was then certainly a dazzling sight with all that ornate symbolism and elaborate choreography. But there were, as we've been hearing, unique modern touches too. Here are just a few of the highlights of the coronation service.
is about to begin.
Well, our next guest had a central and essential role in today's coronation. Queen's companion, Lady Lansdowne, was one of just 2 people who attended Her Majesty throughout the service. We saw you there. You had not the starring role, but an absolutely central role in what was happening.
Definitely not a starring role. We
No,
were
but a
very much
central role.
in support, but it was a central role. We were, yes, I was very honoured to be asked to do it.
Are you happy with how it went?
I think so. I need to watch it first,
It
because
was-
from within you see what's around you. It's more than the whole pageant, and particularly because I didn't have my glasses on.
Right.
There was a lovely blur. There was a bit of a haze around it. So, but it was an extraordinary thing to do.
Yes, it was very interesting to see you watching the pictures there, because you quite intently, inevitably, of course, you must have been hyper-focused
Completely
on your
focused.
friend.
Completely focused on the Queen, and that she was comfortable, and that her robe was in the right place, and that we all knew when to stand and sit down, as informed by the lovely bishop standing beside us, because it was that was my role, just to make sure that she felt supported and that we got it right, and that I was supporting her sister as well. And it was an extraordinary thing to do.
When you were watching, you said at one point, the folding of the robe.
The folding.
How did you
practice the folding?
how did you practice the
The
folding?
folding, we did it because they're very precious, those amazing trains. And the one that the Queen comes in is a very old velvet, silk velvet, and it needs to be incredibly carefully folded. And we just practiced and practiced with the lovely equerry who was taking the weight of it, because it was quite heavy. We practiced many times. We didn't do it quite as perfectly today as we did it yesterday.
It looked pretty
But
good.
it didn't go on the floor. That was the amazing thing.
One of the other things you said when you were watching there was, you said, well, special mention to Penny Mordaunt. And I think
She
around the
was
country a lot of people thought
magnificent.
that.
I have to say, Penny Mordaunt, take my hat off to you. You looked marvellous. And in those sparkly heels, she did not move a muscle holding that sword. She was magnificent. Amazing lady.
Can you explain to me the personal experience for you of seeing the Queen, who is also the person that you sort of chat about Strictly Come Dancing with, or walk the dogs with, or I've known for decades, 4
Yes,
decades,
yes.
you've been close friends.
Yes.
What is that experience like, to see her
It
in
was-
such a very, very public and extraordinary set of
It was quite
circumstances?
surreal. And during the week when we've been rehearsing, Annabelle and I often sort of looked at each other and thought, it's not, how is this real? It was just sort of extraordinary, practicing getting in and out of the carriage. We had a lot of laughs over the week, and that's one of the things I treasure most about her friendship, is that she's got this wonderful light touch and sense of humour, and that we needed that during the rehearsals, because there were moments when none of us knew what we were doing, but we needed to give her confidence, and she gave us confidence by just lightening the mood. But we had, we had those wonderful equerries and those incredible page boys. Those 8 boys were so well behaved and so smart, and took it very, very seriously. And I think that because the equerries were so good with them and treating them like their men, they were their soldiers, and it made those young boys who, they're between 9 and 13, feel the weight of responsibility that they had, and to understand why they were wearing riflemen's uniforms or grenadiers' uniforms, or the page boys in same red that was worn at the Battle of Blenheim, I believe. It made them understand the importance of what they were doing and how they were representing the army, and how they needed to be up straight and stand up straight. And we thought we would have to say, quick, stand up straight. We hardly had to nudge them at all. They just, come the day, they just rose to it in the most magnificent way. They were adorable.
Even when you were all out on Buckingham Palace balcony, and of course you were there, they were ramrod straight.
They were ramrod straight, and we only knew we were going on the balcony 1 minute before.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't tell us or the boys.
So that was was that a little
Yes,
gift?
it was a little gift, I think, but also I think they slightly realised without the boys holding the trains, the Queen would have been dragged back, because they don't slide very easily on a carpet. So the boys needed to be there, And then we were just all told we were all going on the balcony, and that was an extraordinary thing.
Yes, can you explain that to me? Because I was wondering as I was looking, I was thinking, we see it all from this point of view, but to be on the receiving end, to look all the way up London's most famous street and see tens of thousands of people there.
I've grown up looking at balcony things. Never, ever did I think I would be on a balcony. I mean, my sisters don't believe that I was there now, really. But I think that it was just that you could feel the enthusiasm of the crowd. You could feel all those wonderful people in the rain just willing them on, and it was the most extraordinary experience. This groundswell of singing and chanting and shouting and clapping. It was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And I think for those little boys, something they will never forget. I mean, I won't forget it. Absolutely. But if you're 9 or 10, that's something that will stay with you forever.
And the Queen herself this evening, how is she looking upon today?
I think she's extremely, well, she's very tired. I think they both are, but I think she's so proud of how it went. And I think she was extraordinary. She really held it together in the most marvellous way, because it's an extraordinary thing to suddenly do and to be in the middle of this amazing medieval yet modern service and keep ramrod straight. She never slouched in her chair. She sat perfectly straight. And I think she was just absorbing, as we all were.
Wonderful to have the insight from you. Thank you so much for joining us, Lady
much.
Lansdowne. So nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Well, of course, music played a central role today. It is, after all, one of the King's great passions. Let's listen back to some of those goosebump-inducing moments in the Abbey today.
You keep your silence in the desert blaze, and speak your secrets in the lightning storm. You hide the sun's face like a candle flame, and send a star to keep us stable warm, and feed our hearts with sacred fire. Blessing of the rosebud and the briar, come fill our hearts to know its sacred fire, with sacred fire, with sacred
Amazing. Well, three people who played a central role in the magnificent music today were gospel singer Abimbola Amako-Gyampa, the noted composer Debbie Wiseman, and one of the world's finest conductors, Sir John Eliot Gardiner. Welcome to you all. What a day you have had. Congratulations.
Thank you.
John, I'd like to come to you first of all. You have, of course, conducted the greatest orchestras in some of the finest concert halls around the globe. How did today compare?
Well, it was different, you know. I mean, last night I was at the Amsterdam Concertgebouw conducting Brahms, and then I had to rush over here in order to be present. I wouldn't have missed it for all the world, my goodness. And there was such an amazing atmosphere, a sense of music being celebrated in a way that has not been that way in my lifetime anyway, not by a head of state. And so much love and thought had gone into the planning of it. And His Majesty has really spearheaded the whole operation in such a conscientious and an imaginative way. And it was just so overwhelming, actually, to be a part of it and then to actually initiate the whole musical proceedings with J.S. Bach, who'd never been performed, I don't believe, none of his choral works at the Coronation before. So that was special.
And were you happy with it? Because you were saying there as we were watching in Abimbola, I'll come to you in a second, but you know, you were scrutinising your performance and saying, that was okay. I mean, given that you are all inevitably perfectionists because you're all at the top of your game, were you happy with it?
I was very proud of my lot.
Were you?
You know, yeah, they're terrific. And they sang with absolute, you know, full hearts and commitment, and were deeply privileged. I mean, he's been our patron for over 25 years, and it was so gratifying that he, on his accession, that one of the first things that he did musically was to actually confirm us, or confirm his patronage of the Monteverdi Choir and the English Baroque soloists, and that meant a huge amount. And the fact that he insisted on coming to our rehearsal in Westminster Hall, the school hall, and he was only going to come for a quarter of an hour, and he actually stayed and spent nearly an hour there, and he was absolutely focused on what we were doing and interested, and always, as with him, you know, there's the very serious and there's also the light-hearted. I mean, he has this brilliant sort of chameleon technique of being able to switch from deeply serious to comedic and a lovely banter, and he's so quick off the marks, brilliant.
Abimbola, when you were initially asked, I imagine, first of all, there must be a great sort of rush of pride and excitement, and then maybe the terror of actually having to do it?
I think people keep on saying that about being nervous, being terrified. I don't approach it like that, so...
You didn't look that way at all? You really didn't look in any way terrified. You looked completely in the moment and completely relaxed.
I'm very happy about that.
Okay.
It really is kind of an approach of, we have a job to do.
Yes.
And so it's really, what do you need us to do? And once you kind of know that, that's where all your energy and your time and your love goes into making that as perfect and as beautiful as possible.
How much time and love? I mean, how much rehearsal went into it? How much preparation?
We've been preparing and rehearsing since March.
Right.
So we've been together, and we sing together in other ways as well. So we know each other's voices very well.
Okay.
And so in this context, we were able to, from March, we just had very concentrated rehearsals. Yeah, we had a good time.
Debbie Wiseman, you are a very busy composer, and people will know a lot of your work from films and from television. This is a very particular requirement, and this goes down in history, and people will watch this in the years and decades to come.
It's been an extraordinary day, it really has. And what's been wonderful is that, as John said, King Charles very much chose the music and curated the programme of music himself. And so to have been chosen to have composed two pieces for the Coronation is extraordinary. And to have the opportunity to write for two such different styles, I mean, also completely across the board, there is music performed today was so excellent across the board, from classical, contemporary, and we had lots of different composers from film and television and theatre, and the mix of music was astonishing. And so I had the chance to write for the Westminster Abbey Choir and their organist, and then for Abimbola and her amazing singers, and to be able to write for those two different styles and create a moment. And they, you know, they were amazing. Bim was amazing with her singers. She did such a brilliant job, completely unaccompanied, 8 voices.
Yes.
There on a global stage, completely unaccompanied. I was so proud of them all. They did the most amazing job, and as everybody did. Everybody seemed to rise to the challenge. And it has to be said, we are very good in this country at music. You know, we've got wonderful performers, singers, conductors, orchestras, composers. We're good.
It was interesting to, we're pretty good. I think we can safely say
and we can say that now. We can say that from today.
John, I wonder, knowing the King as you do and having worked on this preparation with him as you did, do people in the musical community, and it's not really a British community, it is inevitably an international community, to have a champion who is the monarch and a very high-profile person must surely be something you welcome greatly?
Hugely, and it's internationally admired. I mean, he is internationally admired and recognised. I mean, to have a head of state with that degree of passion for music is amazing. And you know, sorry to introduce a bum note, but at a time when the whole of the performing arts, but particularly classical music, is so much under threat. I mean, of course, we understand the austerity that's being forced on us again in all different departments, as it were. But the classical music should be knocked in the way that has been recently knocked by the government through the Arts Council is a huge wound on the body politic of classical music. And then the BBC following it up now with their proposed draconian cuts. It's been a hell of a shock to the whole music profession in this country. And he is the one saving grace in all this, because his consistent patronage and enthusiasm and understanding of how important this is for the next 2 generations, as it were. Otherwise, they won't experience.
I want to ask, Abimbola, I want to ask, how many messages have you had today on your phone from people saying we were watching?
My phone is so full that it stopped working, and so I haven't been able to look at the messages because my phone is now saying that you have to get rid of some in order to actually see them. So. Yeah, a lot. Messages upon messages upon messages.
Well, congratulations, and
so
to
much.
you all. Really, something magnificent happened today in that Abbey with your music, so thank you
so
all
much.
for that.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Now, following the Westminster Abbey service, all attention turned to the spectacular military display that was the Coronation Procession. Brigadier Greville Bibby and Claire Balding were our commentators.
Over 4,000 personnel from 3 military services and the Commonwealth, as well as the marching bands on foot and mounted, will make this a feast for the eyes and the ears. It is already in position. It stretches for a mile down the Mall, through Admiralty Arch, along Whitehall, all the way to Westminster. And so begins the Coronation Procession, the route back from Westminster Abbey to Buckingham Palace, and this is where the fun begins. Everything so far has gone absolutely like clockwork. And that golden coach, although it has poor suspension and may not be the most comfortable ride, it looks immaculate. It is glistening, it is gleaming. And it's made of gilt wood. That's a thin layer of gold leaf over wood. The interior is satin and velvet.
It also ensures that the King and Queen are the driest people on the parade.
And here we have the first of the carriages following the Gold State coach, and you can see the Prince and Princess of Wales and their 3 children. Prince George, who played such a good role there as Page of Honour, and Princess Charlotte, who's just celebrated her 8th birthday, and Prince Louis as well, who was 5 last month. Very exciting for them. Now, a very quick change for Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, because in a matter of minutes, she is now mounted, and she is not far behind her brother the King. And we'll have a look further ahead in the parade, because the RAF make a particularly impressive sight because of their watching the service on the big screen, but this is what they've been waiting for. This is why they slept overnight, to get a position so that as the procession came by, they would feel it as well as see it and catch a sight maybe of those young princes waving at them. The Royal Navy here making the turn in front of the statue of Charles I, in front of Trafalgar Square and through Admiralty Arch.
They're commanded by Captain Sophie Shaughnessy, Claire. And she's a marine engineer, served with great distinction in the Royal Navy, Bosnia and the Gulf amongst other places, and this is her last duty in uniform, commanding the Royal Navy at the Coronation.
And they're the band of the Royal Marines with their white pith helmets. All 5 regiments of the Foot Guards now making that turn, and they will have to funnel themselves through those 3 arches, so quite a feat of organisation.
It certainly is, and it's going to get even more challenging when they come to the gates of the forecourt of Buckingham Palace. And we see there behind the Foot Guards, we have a number of different organisations: the Yeoman Warders, the Royal Watermen, as you mentioned before, the King's Bodyguard, the Yeomen of the Guard, the Royal Company of Archers, and the Honourable Company of Gentlemen at Arms. All 5 regiments of Foot Guards with their King's colour ahead of them, and their regimental lieutenant colonels and commanding officers on parade. And there you see the dismounted regiments of the Household Cavalry, the Blues and Royals, and the Life Guards.
Commonwealth troops in the overseas territories. And it's wonderful to know the reach that today is having around the world.
447 representatives of the Commonwealth Armed Forces on parade. And of course the King is head of the Commonwealth, and very interested to learn that he has managed to visit 45 of the 56 Commonwealth countries, which is quite a feat.
And there we find their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, with their children Lady Louise Mountbatten-Windsor and James, Earl of Wessex. And Louise is 19 now. She's studying English at St Andrews University. The Canadian Mounted Police. Now, the Mounties have a wonderful relationship with the Crown. They have, over the years, gifted many horses to the late Queen, and indeed are giving a horse to the King that he will ride for the King's birthday parade, as it will be, trooping the colour in future years. Oh, good move there from the Royal Navy.
And this is a new military manoeuvre which has been designed specifically for this parade to reduce the frontage of 12 into a frontage of 6.
Prince of Wales is wearing underneath those robes the uniform of the Welsh Guards. He is now their colonel.
He's their colonel. And of course the Princess of Wales is the colonel of the Irish Guards. There's the Guard of Honour, Claire. You can see the standard of the Coldstream Guards. Only ever carried in the presence of the monarch. One of 2 colours.
And as the Gold State coach disappears, we will next see all of those who were involved marching on procession. We will see them formed up in the gardens. Rare opportunity to see the gardens of Buckingham Palace. And all those who are on foot for the coronation procession have formed up. They will be shortly saluting the King. 39 acres in total, and these are the largest private gardens in London. They have over 1,000 trees. And His Majesty King Charles III stepping out now onto the West Terrace of Buckingham Palace. Queen Camilla following him. And you see Prince George there at the back of the train, still playing a role as Page of Honour.
Royal salute! Reset! Oh! His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! The parade will replace her dress. Replace! Headdress! Counter!
And the mass pipes and drums are now playing a tune called King Charles III.
What spectacular scenes. Well, I'm joined now by two key players in the coronation procession, Major General of the Household Division, Chris Gika, and Lieutenant Colonel Mike Mendika. Thank you both for joining us and congratulations. Precision perfect in every single way. Chris Gika, you must surely be delighted.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. It's been an amazing day, memorable in so many ways. But of course, it's also the culmination of a lot of work by a lot of people. And so it's been an enormous team effort.
I bet. Give us some insight into that, because of course this is the grandest, the greatest military procession that these streets, that this country, that the international community has seen from Britain in 70 years. Give me an insight into how much work that takes.
A lot, and it starts 6 months ago, and you start to build up different options. And then you take it around the group of stakeholders and get people's views, and then you of course take those to the palace and get direction from them. And so incrementally it builds and builds, and then you start adding the various troops to it, telling people what they're going to be doing. They all rehearse, and then you bring all those rehearsals together, and the result is what you saw today. But there were 4,000 or 5,000 people out there today from all three services, and all of them doing the very best they could to deliver a spectacular performance for the King.
Yes, to my eye it looked spectacular and perfect. Was it perfect?
Yes, it was. I mean,
yes.
I think there was, I haven't watched it back yet on television, but I noticed nothing awry, and so it was an absolutely incredible performance.
Lieutenant Colonel Mendika, quite something to be part of, I'm guessing. What was your highlight of the day?
For me, I think this is something so grand and so unique, where you are amongst an incredible number of nations, and you have this unique connection to His Majesty, and being able to go down the Mall with your contingent, but also with the remainder of the Commonwealth, the overseas territories and the realms, and to be unified in purpose and in celebration. I think that's something that I won't have the opportunity again to experience. At least I don't think so. So I'm incredibly fortunate to have gone through it.
We saw that lovely little snippet there, Claire highlighted it, of the Canadian Mounted Police, of the Mounties. How big was your contingent? How many Canadian troops were part of it?
For the Canadian Armed Forces contingent, it was 46 soldiers from across the 4 major services, and I believe it was the largest Commonwealth contingent here.
So how did you get the chance then to practice as part of this group? Because I'm sure you're very busy people with all your commitments and having to fit in all the regular stuff that you do. When did you get time to rehearse?
So thankfully we have professional and very patient instructors in Camp Pirbright that brought us in, and not just the Canadians, but all nations. And we started fresh. And it took an incredible number of days and discipline to get to the point to where we were today, where, as the commander said, I believe we reached perfection for His Majesty.
And Kirsty, tell me about Atticus. How well behaved or not was Atticus today?
Atticus was excellent. He's calm, but he spooks easily. And of course it's a very threatening environment in which to ride when you've got the mall, stacked back on either side as far as it'll go, with people cheering.
I should say Atticus is a horse, of course. I mean,
Atticus is just
in case people are thinking, who is Atticus? And what has he got to do with anything? Sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, Atticus is my horse I've been riding for 3 years.
Yeah.
So he spooks easily, but we took him for a good exercise this morning with the other horses, and he was good as gold, which was good news for me.
Yes, now let's just think back to, we saw it there in all its glory, and it was glorious, this royal salute in the Palace Gardens. I mean, for all of the troops today, surely, I mean, even just seeing inside the Palace Garden is a sort of extraordinary thing, but to stand there and to stand on the lawn and to have the King and Queen come out, that must have been, I don't know if it was the highlight, was it? Was that the highlight?
Yes, I think that was the highlight for all of us, actually. I mean, I think that was put into planning very early on. The genesis came from the Garrison Sergeant Major. But the important thing was, of course, 4,000 or 5,000 troops on the parade, few of whom will actually get to see the King without a moment like that, because he's behind the back of the procession. And so the idea was that everybody on parade gets to see the King, to give a royal salute and to give 3 cheers. So for all of us, I think that was an amazing moment.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to you both for taking the time this evening, because you got up at 2:15, did you say?
For breakfast, yes.
Okay, it's been a long day. It's time, and we pulled you out of a party to come here, so thank you for doing that as well. You can go on and celebrate, and thank you so much, both of you. I mean, congratulations. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, the spirits were high and the festivities in full swing as the crowds gathered on the Mall to await the balcony appearance of the newly crowned King Charles III and Queen Camilla. It was, of course, last June at the Platinum Jubilee that we saw scenes similar to this, and today, a different moment. They come to pay their respects to King Charles III, and we are hoping that we shall have the royal family, the King and Queen, appearing on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, accompanied by other working members of the royal family, and that they will enjoy a fly-past. There we have King Charles III and Queen Camilla in the imperial state crown and Queen Mary's crown, waving to the thousands of people who are thronging the Mall, who have braved the rain and are here to witness an historic moment. And we see there the pages getting a moment that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And also Queen Camilla is joined by the 2 ladies in attendance who helped her with her train and doubtless steadied the nerves too this morning as she was getting ready. A wave to the crowd and the crowd waves back. He does look relaxed, he's taking it all in, and it must be quite a scene to be on the receiving end of. The first of the aircraft in today's flypast, which has been scaled down because of the bad weather, is nonetheless enjoyable. Helicopters from each of the services. The Navy, the Army, the Royal Marines and the Royal Air Force. And actually His Majesty is the first monarch who can fly a helicopter. In his naval days, he was reputed to be a very good Wessex helicopter pilot. And now for the big moment, the spectacular sight of the Red Arrows with their signature red, white and blue smoke. What a moment to top off this historic day, which this huge crowd will surely remember for a long time to come. And those were the scenes this afternoon. It's worth a reminder that the coronation celebrations are far from over. Tomorrow night, for the first time ever, Windsor Castle will play host to a spectacular coronation concert featuring a host of musical favourites alongside world-class entertainers and performers. And Clara Amfo joins us now with an exclusive first look at that stage. Clara.
Good evening and hello from Windsor, and what a day it has been. And Kirsty, you are absolutely right. The celebrations are far from over. Check this out. It's the stage for the Coronation concert that will be taking place live from 8 p.m. tomorrow. And yes, you can see tents on the stage at the moment because there was a colossal downpour earlier today in Windsor and they are protecting the instruments. But we are really hoping for lovely sunshine tomorrow. The stage is huge. That screen up there at the top is 6 metres high, and that's about the height of 21 state crowns on top of one another. The stage itself is the same width as 5 Gold State coaches parked end to end, which the audience would have seen the King and Queen Camilla in earlier today. And then there's the incredible backdrop of Windsor Castle, and this whole area will be the home to 20,000 excited ticket holders tomorrow night from 8 p.m. There's certainly a buzz here at Windsor Castle. I think it's safe to say, Ollie Mers, good evening.
How are you?
I'm feeling great. How are you feeling in this moment, 24 hours to go before your performance?
Feeling incredible, yeah, feeling really good. The rain earlier was a little bit frustrating, but apart from that, it's just an amazing atmosphere.
And you're not going to be alone on that stage, are you? A 70-piece military orchestra.
Yeah, well, because of the rain, I didn't get a chance to play with them earlier, but we're just about to do some rehearsals, so I get to hear it again, which, by the way, I think from what I've heard so far, it sounds incredible. So, yeah, very exciting.
Now, Ollie, this isn't your first rodeo. You've performed for the Royals before. How does this experience compare to today?
Well, this one is the biggest one. You know, this one goes down in history. So I'm super, super excited to be here, and just, yeah, my family and my friends, myself, I'm super proud to have this moment, yeah.
Now, have you had a chance to have a little look around Windsor Castle yet?
I haven't. They haven't let me. But backstage is great. I'm next to Lionel Richie and Katy Perry, which is cool. So looking forward to catching up with them later. But yeah, we haven't had a chance to look around really. So maybe later.
Yeah, I reckon you'll be able to get that in.
Tomorrow night after the gig, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
They might let me loose.
Let's get the work done first. Well, look, Ollie, I'm going to let you get on with rehearsal and have an amazing performance tomorrow evening. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Now, somebody else who had the honour of performing at the cathedral earlier on today was the wonderful Sabrin Tervel. Shemai, Sabrin.
Shemai, Clara, how are you? Well done.
Thank you very much. Sabrina, I was watching you earlier when I was at home. Your face was full of pride, concentration and glee. What was that experience like at Westminster for you?
Well, first of all, the piece that I sang was written by a Welshman, and the words were by a Welshman as well, Paul Miller. And it was amazing just to be singing Welsh. And Graham Davis translated the words, who was the secretary of the then Prince Charles. So, no, it was wonderful. And I was the first one to sing. I was looking forward to it. And of course, I had the choir to each side of me. It was thrilling.
A gorgeous, gorgeous performance. Now, you've had quite the 24 hours, whisked from Westminster to Windsor. Have you ever had a day like this before?
Yes, I think people are getting fed up of me now. Yeah. I was walking from Westminster to Victoria and just seeing all these wonderful people with all their crowns and dressing up and, you know, in the middle of the rain, still smiling. What a day for them as well.
Absolutely.
It's brilliant. And it's nice to be here. And I'll be singing a duet with my good friend Andrea Bocelli.
How excited are you to reunite with Andrea on the stage?
Incredible. He is so passionate about singing. That's all he wants to talk about, either opera or how the voice works. In the middle of a phrase, he might go and touch your throat and just to see how it works. It's incredible to be on the stage with him again.
Well, we cannot wait to see you, Sabrina. Diolch. And we will see you tomorrow evening. Thank you so very much. Kirsty, as you can hear, it's going to be incredible tomorrow. We'll see you then.
I think it is. Thanks so much, Clara. There are some other great guests performing, including, I should remind you, Lionel Richie, Take That, and Katy Perry. So plenty more to enjoy on this special weekend. But for now, probably worth taking just a moment to appreciate all that we have witnessed today. The turning of a page in the history books. A jubilant coronation service underpinned by the dazzling presence of ancient jewelled crowns and sceptres and golden robes, but also with a distinctively fresh approach, not just because of the specially composed new music or glorious gutsy gospel choir, but because we saw in so many of the people taking part, all of ourselves reflected back, the faces that watched on in the Abbey of different generations, nationalities and faiths in harmony, united in goodwill for the newly crowned King and Queen. And at the very heart of things, youngsters from a blended family playing their part, behaving themselves and helping their majesties enjoy an extraordinary day. We saw recycled thrones that with some expert care showcased our monarch's love of craft and sustainability. And we watched the awe-inspiring display of military gather in a garden, salute their commander-in-chief and let out a cheer loud enough to ring around the Commonwealth. It didn't matter the weather, because nothing seemed to dampen the spirit of that massive crowd that had flocked to the Mall to cement their bond with their king. It is surely a day that will live long in the memory, not just for the monarch, but for all of us who watched. Thank you to the incredibly hard-working technical and production team who put together today's marathon broadcast. But especially thank you for joining us.
Your Majesty, as children of the Kingdom of God, we welcome you in the name of the King of Kings.
You to your power cause law and justice in mercy to be executed in all your judgments.
I will.
hip!